Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in TradFi, digital assets, technology, and financial planning. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the Nasdaq market site is Dr. Merav Ozair, global leading emerging technologies expert, Martin Rand, CEO and co-founder of Pactum AI, Manish Sood, founder, chairman, and CEO of Reltio, and Scott Laliberte, managing director and global leader of the emerging technology group at Protiviti. They join me to discuss AI washing and implementing effective AI governance and compliance. It is great to have everyone with us discussing our favorite topic on Trade Talks. Let's go around the horn quickly here for some background. Merav, tell us about some of the work that you've been doing in the emerging tech space.
My focus these days is mostly on responsible innovation, about responsible AI, and how to operationalize responsible AI across the organization.
All right, and we'll certainly get into that. Martin, Pactum AI, give us some background.
We have built a bot that can autonomously negotiate supplier deals for the largest enterprises in the world. So they have 100,000 suppliers and they can't talk to everyone. So we talk to the massive amount of suppliers, renegotiate terms like price, payment terms, growth opportunities, and so on, and unlock hundreds of millions of dollars of value. And as you noticed, I didn't use AI once, so that's part of the topic.
I was just going to say, I'm sure you leverage AI a lot, and we'll certainly get into that. Manish, tell us about Reltio.
So Reltio is a data unification and management company. We provide the product capability that allows our customers, which are large enterprises, to unify information about customers, products, suppliers, that they run their business on for their enterprise-wide use. And we work with some of the largest Fortune 500 companies across healthcare, life sciences, financial services, insurance, manufacturing, retail type of areas.
And Scott, tell us about Protiviti.
Yeah, Protiviti, we're a global consulting organization. My particular group, we help companies apply emerging technology to achieve business advantage. Areas like AI, both on the use case, trying to identify those use cases that really will give them ROI, and at the same time do it in a responsible manner by developing an AI governance framework.
Well, let's get into this concept of AI washing. What is that exactly?
AI washing is the concept of, I would say, you're overhyping what you're doing and using the buzzword of AI. While AI can be doing great things for you right now, we see a lot of companies overstating what it may be doing, or if they're using it at all. That creates a lot of dangers, right, of giving misstatements to the customers, and I think we see the SEC respond by that by having hit a few people with some fines on that.
So Merav, what would be an example of AI washing?
Well, I think there was an example like Coca-Cola when they came out with this new drink, and they said that it was, created by AI, and and it seems like there wasn't really an AI. I mean, maybe functionally they used AI, but it wasn't like an AI. New brand that was created by AI. So that's kind of the hype. Like, you use the word AI because everyone is like hyped by AI. Oh, that's an AI drink. So, and that was what we're trying to. You're trying to beef your product in order to create like more revenues and more
I would
profit.
jump in on that.
Yeah.
We are in a hype cycle right now,
right.
And the reaction to this hype cycle shouldn't be over-regulation to combat AI washing. And we're going to talk about that a bit more as well. So for instance, we used to call during the dot-com bubble all companies, dot-com companies. We don't do that anymore. The same is going to happen with as AI becomes normalized. So there's no reason to overreact as well.
It reminds me of like 2017, 2018, when everyone was attaching blockchain
Right.
to their
Yes.
as well.
But just to understand, the hype of the AI is like I don't know if you know that, but as of February or January, there were over 350,000 domains that have a .ai. Do you think that all of them, use AI, or even AI companies? It's just like oh, I have a .ai, so that's the hype.
Well, Manish, government regulators they're noticing this AI washing trend, aren't they?
They are, and as you pointed out, that some of the companies who were overhyping or overusing the term AI, but behind the scenes they're still using people to do the job. Those are the types of things that will get washed out because of this. on one hand, everybody's concerned about how they will be left behind if they don't jump on the AI bandwagon, but at the same time, converting it into something of business value that either accelerates the time to value or reduces the amount of burden that you have to go through in terms of the human effort. Those are the types of things that you need to apply AI to so that you can have some meaningful outcomes coming out of it.
But to be a little bit fair here, AI has been used for decades. If you can think about the most basic one, like a regression model, and to the more sophisticated we have today. So we have been using AI. Especially if you think about algorithm trading, it's kind of
it's a form of AI.
For a form of AI, but no one has ever used the term AI-powered fund. They will say quant fund, right, or algorithmic fund. We never said AI-powered fund, but now they're using AI. Has anything changed? No. It's just because it's a buzzword that you want to use. But can you say that they're not using AI? What is the degree?
One thing that has changed is that the use of AI has come to the hands of everybody now. Because in the past it was limited to some of the technology companies applying it or algorithmic trading as a means to get to an outcome. But with the advent of ChatGPT type of user experiences, it suddenly became available to everybody to experiment with.
To experiment as a user, not sell as developer.
Right.
To add to that, right, I think we had a lot of machine learning type
Right.
AI, the Gen AI, the LLMs, that's the new aspect of this, and some inherent risks and challenges that
Right.
come along with that of
Right.
not necessarily having control of the training data, not being able to do the explainability or the
Right.
transparency with those models. Those are new things that have to be dealt
We
with.
haven't solved that in machine learning. The basic stuff. Or now we jumped into something like 10 degrees higher.
So Scott, let me ask you a question. When you're advising clients here, because you have to weigh, yes, we want to go to market. Yes, we want new revenue streams. Everybody wants to be first. Then you also have to think about the cybersecurity side, the risk management side of the equation. You just don't want AI, and there's not a problem that you're looking to solve. So, when you advise clients, do you put the chicken before the egg first? It feels like we're really rushing to go to market,
Right.
but there are parts on the risk side of the equation that have to be weighed as well.
Yeah. Getting the right use cases is the key. You can't just apply the technology. It's what's the business problem that you're going to solve to achieve advantage. How and which ones are well suited for AI. And even then, you have to look at the risks of those, right? Using AI for risky transactions like credit scoring or something like that versus recommending products is a lot different and
Right.
carry much different risks that you have to weigh. So it's that risk is part of that risk-reward equation. It has to be factored into your ROI calculation.
Right. So, and Martin, that's essentially what you're doing with Pactum AI, is looking to create those efficiencies within the supply chain.
Yeah, and that's what you mentioned is a way to see through the AI haze, is to focus on the tangible value that companies providing. For instance, we have Waymo that is developing autonomous cars. And they're not saying, hey, we're an AI company. They're doing something in a superhuman way, and this should be asked every company. Like, we are having thousands of negotiations simultaneously in a superhuman way, and that's how AI should be used. We do something which people are not capable of, and that helps us to see through the AI kind of haze.
Yeah, it seems as if AI is almost organizing all this information in a way that human brains either don't or just can't process as quick. It's a more efficient way to organize all this information.
Yes, but there are also a lot of inherent dangers in
Right.
that. So a large language model isn't actually a database. It's a neural network
Right.
that performs like an artist. And actually, conceptually, it cannot be controlled. It cannot be guardrailed. And we see a lot of issues out there now with Air Canada being sued with something, what their AI bot said. Someone in California bought a car for $1 because they negotiated with an AI bot. So that's actually a worry. Companies that, and that's part of the AI washing also, companies that sell AI need to understand this technology to protect the customers.
Right. Well, that was the
Yeah.
whole thing. You have to measure that risk out versus being first to the market sometimes.
Yeah. And two other risks, in addition to the ones you talked about, I think are the intellectual property risks. Who owns that unique output put out by the generative AI? And also, do you have the permission to use the data you're using it to train with it?
Well, we already know that there was Google was fined in France for copyrights. So we know that. I mean, in terms of training, I mean, they can dispute that, but there are copyrights here. You have to ask permission to use this data. You can't just use it without asking anybody.
And the thing that is coming up is, especially with the advent of large language models, these are data hungry algorithms that you're putting to work. So in order to create them, in order to train them, you have to feed them a lot of data as an input. But then once you want to apply it, depending on the context, and especially coming from the enterprise side of the work area, we're looking at how enterprises infuse the large language models with their enterprise data, because without that, they can't get the relevant answers for their own business.
So Manish, we'll stay with that topic for a moment there, because it's subjective at the end of the day. I might consider ethical use, you may not. So without, let's call it a regulatory framework firmly in place in the US, how do you implement effective AI governance and compliance? It's almost like you're all acting as SROs, self-regulatory organizations, and the industry is essentially policing itself. So how are you doing this at the enterprise level?
Well, at the enterprise level, we've been using AI for a long time now, because some of the capabilities that we built out, which were about stitching data from multiple silos into a unified view, wasn't something that could be done with just people doing it at millions and billions of record type of scale. So we had to create algorithmic capabilities relying on AI. But when we started developing our software, some of the key premise that we had as a foundational element was that we don't own the data. We're a software provider, we're a capability provider. The customers that we are working with, they're the ultimate owners of the data. And in fact, even in their business, they have the ultimate owner. For example, if you're a financial institution, the ultimate information about the client should be owned by the client, which is where the privacy regulation type of details come in. We have to follow that chain. We have to follow that thought process and make sure that the way we develop the capabilities honor and work within those guardrails. And some of it is going to evolve as a part of the pushing the envelope with AI. But I think this is where, unless we are at the forefront of pushing that envelope, we will not be able to come up with the areas where we are going to run into issues that haven't been thought about before.
But we see a development from international organizations right now that are putting together some guidelines around responsible AI, ethical AI. One of them just recently, I think just a week ago or something, the Organization for Economic and Cooperation and Development, which is international organizations. I think they have 38 countries or so, and from all over the world, and they are, they put, very much in line of what Manish was saying in terms of the ethical, responsible AI. And another thing that they are emphasizing there as one section that they have is about cooperation, international cooperation between governments, including development countries. And also they are encouraging for international compatible measures for research development and deployment of AI.
Governance inside big organizations is extremely tricky, because you have to imagine there are 100,000, or in case of some of our customers, even millions of people working in these organizations using these AI systems and enabling the use of the systems for third parties as well. So we see, number one, it begins from training.
Right.
So we've invested into the creation of Autonomous Negotiations Academy to teach every single employee how to protect the company against those dangers and how to focus on long-term value.
Martin,
Martin,
you bring up a great point about organizations already using it and not even knowing what they have. That's why we're helping clients really inventory existing AI that they have in there, understanding the risks associated with it, and putting controls or mitigating controls in place to protect against it.
one of the areas that also comes up in working with these large enterprises, not only do they have large number of employees, but they're also cross-border and cross-geography type
This
of
is why you need
implications that have to be
organization.
thought through.
Right. Well, I mean, but the regulations are there, though. The EU AI Act, there's privacy acts that have been enacted there. So there is some sort of a framework, particularly with financial services, which is one of the most heavily regulated industries. So why do these gaps still exist here when there is a framework in place?
Yeah. It's not well defined. I look at this like the early days of the 2000s when privacy regulations was still in its infancy. States had their individuals. You saw the White House issue a similar executive order on privacy, and then even though there wasn't federal legislation, the FTC, the SEC, DOJ started slapping companies with fines. I think we're already seeing that now with White House issued their executive order in October. They fined a couple companies recently for AI washing. They listed a whole bunch of other things in there besides AI washing that companies better be looking out for, because I think we're going to start seeing enforcement actions in those areas as well.
What we do, but we do see the states moving, with their regulations. They have, we just the New York State is focusing on the employment aspect of it, Massachusetts on the privacy aspect of it. I mean, everyone finds their own favorite topic in AI, to focus on. So we see states, and states always move faster than the federal. So I don't know.
But that's part of the problem. This proliferation of all these different guidelines and frameworks, which makes it challenging to understand what the frameworks are, because I think one of the problems that we have in the US is that we regulate by enforcement, and you're kind of out there not necessarily understanding what your framework from an enterprise level looks like.
So I'm originally European, and I look at the EU AI Act as well, and I think what's fundamentally important is that any regulation focuses on growth. If we lose growth of the market, then AI is going to disappear under the radar into areas where we can't see it, we can't regulate it. I think Biden's executive order on AI that came out last year focuses fairly much on growth versus AI versus EU took an approach where they outright banned some uses of technologies, like, for instance, reading of emotions of children.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a little bit on the borderline of usage. I mean,
but the EU framework essentially establishes that the user owns their data. Right. So
that's the data privacy.
Right. But what I'm saying is, it feels as if whether you're talking about the DSA, Privacy Act, AI Act, it tends to be more focused around protecting the consumer necessarily than what companies can or cannot.
But the question is how you protect it. There is a scalpel approach and there is a sledgehammer approach. The outright banning some uses of technology means that you also ban any good that comes from it. For instance, the emotions reading of children might be very beneficial for them in therapy, for instance.
Okay.
It all depends on the context and where it is used and for what purpose. I mean, if you're using it for a toy, probably not. But if you're using it, in the physician clinic, then that's a different story. I mean, it all depends on the context.
Well, and then data in, data out. It depends on the context.
Exactly.
It definitely depends on the context. We have had an effort to create and roll out privacy regulation, and if you think about the U.S., it started at a state level, and we're still in the process of catching up across the entire United States. But with AI, we're also extending the scenarios and the use cases that one used to think about as being possible, because who owns the emotional attribution that you read off of somebody's face, and is that a part of the Privacy Act or law? It was never thought about in that manner. So now, with the context of AI, there are some additional details that can come to surface, can be captured as additional data, and that's a part of the problem that we are running into, because it is opening up doors that we didn't have before, with the new technology and the capabilities that are coming to us.
Right, Scott, final thoughts. I'm sorry, we're almost done.
Yeah,
Final
I
thoughts.
think it was a great thought, and that's why I think it's so important that companies form a steering committee or governance committee made up with multiple disciplines and views, because we are treading on new areas here. Right? Even if you take like the NIST RMF framework or other frameworks and look at those controls, there are ones that the new Gen AI models are extremely hard to enforce. We're going to need out-of-the-box thinking. We're going to need to address it on a use case by use cases basis with mitigating controls like human in the loop, or maybe even just avoiding some risky transaction areas for now until
All
we
right.
figure it out.
Appreciate everyone's insight. We could go all day on this one. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from MarketSite. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.